Please welcome Christian Taylor.
Very much. Brilliant. Perfect. So we've talked a bit about, well, Sarah's talked to you about the tools that we have available to us to use holistic measurement. I'm going to describe to you today a story of putting that into practice. I think we've talked about today the opportunity of creativity and actually having the holistic measurement in place, which allows you to track both the short, the medium and the long-term metrics of your effectiveness, gives you confidence. And this story is all about how confidence grows over time to invest more, not just investing more in what works, but actually investing for the future as well. Unfortunately, James couldn't join us today. We were hoping to have James Burton-Lee. So he is head of customer acquisition at David Lloyd Leisure. But I'm going to describe a 5-year journey for you today. Last year, we won a Media Week Gold Award for the best long-term media strategy for David Lloyd Leisure. And I think it's a really good case study of putting holistic measurement into practice. So 3 things I'm going to take you through today. The first one, I'm going to give you a bit of context, which is sort of the past 5 years and how the media mix changed for David Lloyd and how holistic measurement allowed us to do that. The second bit is actually a bit of how we actually implemented the holistic measurement, which is all of the things that Sarah was just describing. And finally, 3 key takeaways today. So let's start with David Lloyd Leisure and 5 years ago. So a bit of context before I take you back to 2017. For those of you that don't know David Lloyd Leisure, my brand tracking says about 50% of you probably don't really understand the true value of David Lloyd. But David Lloyd obviously started with the tennis player, but now today what they are is a really premium leisure club. So they have everything from indoor and outdoor swimming pools, they have studio suites for classes, they have spas, they have creches for children. So actually the breadth of the offer is really, really strong, and it is a premium club. And that comes with a price. So it's about £100. It starts at about £100 a month for a David Lloyd membership. So back in 2017, if you sort of think about where the leisure industry's gone, we're certainly in that premium corner of the sector. And what was happening was there was a growth of budget gyms coming into the market. So I think about 2009, Pure Gym launched, and by 2017, when we first started working with David Lloyd, they had 180 clubs, 180 gyms across the UK, which was double the amount of clubs that David Lloyd Leisure have. They have about 90 clubs across the UK. And of course, at the other end of the spectrum, there are the boutique gyms as well. So they were coming into urban areas using innovative, immersive experiences. They had a slightly lower offering, but they were still a premium price in that sector as well. So we were sort of squeezed in the middle slightly. And as we started advertising in 2017, we onboarded in January of that year. If anyone here is onboarding a media agency, I probably wouldn't do it in your key window, sales window, but it was a turbulent time. But actually what we found was the real challenge was the market was increasing in its spend. So in that January, we were outspent by some of the competitors in the market in the really key window of that first couple of weeks of January. So that was a real key learning for us. But actually what we did in that first year of 2017 was really tighten down our linear measurement. So we used all of the techniques that helped us to measure and optimize the short-term impact of our TV. And we also were able to sort of look at the club-by-club level of our digital media advertising as well. So we were tightening the screws on all of our linear measurement. And ultimately, we halved the CPA of TV over the year of 2017. And really importantly, we built our media mix or marketing mix model. And that is really what sort of helped us close the gap of measurement ultimately. So in 2018, we were able to take a bolder approach using that marketing mix model and a chart like this one. Ultimately told us where our diminishing returns were on channels like TV. Well, actually, in every channel, we knew where our diminishing returns were. So we could set budgets in that key window of January 2018 and actually win the share of voice while still being effective and not overspending in that window as well. So what that meant was in 2018, our share of voice rose to 40%, which was the highest in the category sector, and we increased our inquiry volume by 3 times from the previous year. So a really key tool for us to be able to sort of close the gap. What happened from there in 2018 and 2019, essentially we had the marketing mix model in place and essentially started to stress test channels. So through the summer of 2018 into 2019, we were able to see if we spend more, what happens? We got new data points. It meant that we could actually see what was the real headroom beyond that as well. So 2019, we invested even more into January. And this was mainly looking at that sort of short to medium term impact on inquiries at the time. So over those 3 years, we saw significant growth in our inquiry volumes. I think it was about an average of 13% each year. We were growing and doing it efficiently as well. But we came into sort of late 2019, and we were using our long-term measurement to understand where the next level of growth was going to come for David Lloyd Leisure. And what the insight that we found from our brand tracking is that despite the high brand awareness, most people had sort of heard of David Lloyd. They didn't really understand. They thought it was a gym, and an expensive one at that, rather than the whole club, the leisure club that it was. So we were really relying on the sort of sales journey, which was an inquiry, bring them into the club, take them on a tour to get them to understand it. And actually, beyond that, people just didn't really get the proposition. So we needed a new media strategy, and our econometrics and everything else and our sort of learnings through that gave us the confidence to sort of create a baseline plan, which meant that we would hit short-term revenue targets and sales targets, but actually allow us to invest more in the long term. So we used a new media strategy in January of 2020, which changed from sort of 1+ reach, focusing on reaching as many of the category consumers as we can, to 4+. So thinking about, actually, we need frequency now, and we need to do it with a new message. And that resulted in a new media mix. So we had confidence to actually invest in completely new channels, which looked a bit like this. So we used a TV ad, which sort of targeted our prosperous families audience, which kind of tapped into the insight that they were busy people and not spending a lot of time with their kids, who were all on technology. And actually, David Lloyd was a great place to live an active lifestyle with your family. And we bookended their commute with these large digital out-of-home formats, which again was a format we previously hadn't used, but gave us the stature to sort of show the premium nature of and drive understanding of the proposition. And of course, that was all underpinned with our learnings from our short-term and medium-term measurement that we have as well. So over that period, the campaign took them and us to record growth. And I think the benefit of having a partnership like this is obviously when David Lloyd grows, then we grow too. And so, of course, TV spend increased, and it sort of had a 3-fold spend, 3.5 times growth in TV spend over 4 years. But ultimately, we actually saw growth in David Lloyd as well. So, as I said, 13% average growth in average inquiry volumes. January 2020, we saw a 28% uplift in in the inquiries versus the previous year, the previous January. And the big sort of metric that we were trying to shift was brand understanding changed by 5%. So we were starting to shift the long-term metrics as well. And so over the 5-year period, our media mix has changed. We've had the confidence to push more in terms of total volume. We've tested new channels. You can see that we've tried out of home in 2019, 2020. Our sort of learnings have told us actually we've got better effects in things like radio. So we've been able to sort of shift things around over time, and we've got the ultimate perfect mix really for us to drive growth for the organization. So I've talked about some of the sort of holistic measurement things that have come into place. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about putting that into practice. Firstly, I think let's describe holistic measurement. Hopefully you've got a good picture of it so far. But ultimately, it's the systems and processes that enable you to isolate and measure the short, medium, and long-term effects of advertising to make informed decisions on the shape and weight of media investment. So I think what's really important is actually getting those processes and systems in place. Now, there's one thing sort of having the data available to yourself. So lots of us have linear measurement, short-term measurement available to us. Lots of us have brand tracking, which is also really useful. What really changed the game for us was that sort of medium-term statistical analysis of the longer tail of the effects of different channels as well. So that's one thing, having the data available. But actually what we learned was it's kind of getting the processes in place to disseminate that data. So weekly calls weren't just us and the client. It had the website team in there as well. So we were talking about the short-term measurement with them. The data was shared with the board, so it became gospel with what was actually growing in terms of the organization. And brand tracking was used at a strategic level to sort of decide what should be our North Star KPI as a business as well. And I think having all of these things in place gives you a competitive advantage, and it certainly has for David Lloyd over the past 5 years. In 3 ways. Firstly, as a marketeer, you'll be better at budget setting. At the beginning of the year, you'll be able to have confidence in the budget that you need to hit the targets, the sales that you require. You'll be able to improve your performance optimization. So all of that short-term data helps you make short-term decisions and influence that sort of performance in the short term. And then confidence to invest in the future as well. So as you can see from this, it took a few years, but actually once we had the confidence, we knew we could hit sales, we could reinvest the profits that we had made into the long-term business. So I'm going to talk through those 3 things a little bit more and how we use those tools. So Sarah touched on the or econometrics. One of the tools that comes out of this sort of data is a scenario planner. So we actually have a scenario planner for David Lloyd. We can plug in different budget scenarios across different media channels. And because we know what the baseline is like, and we know what the impact of sales and summer and good weather does, we actually can invest the right amount in media and advertising and sort of know that that's what we need to do to reach the sort of sales targets. Of course, we update it regularly too. So COVID had an impact, huge impact for David Lloyd, but now we're starting to sort of plug data in like working from home and what impact has that had on our baseline and that sort of thing. So over time, we're sort of updating this data quarterly and sort of getting a better view to allow us to better set our budgets as well. Sarah gave you a really good insight into Flight Deck. It's become a really useful tool for us, but integrating that customer data into the dashboard helps us optimize quicker. So we have competitor data in there as well, so we can sort of understand when competitors are sort of spending more and the impact it might have on our short-term investments. And we can make weekly optimizations at a club level as well. And then the third point, it gives us the confidence to invest in broadcast media. And I think this is a really good example of that. So coming out of lockdown, this was April 2021. All of the other sector competitors here, you can see, put all of their budget into April 2021, expecting a big unlocking, unrevealing of people going back to the gym. What we did is we looked at our models and sort of applied some thinking around consumer behaviors and actually their confidence to come back to gyms as well. And we weighted our TV budgets, actually all of our media budgets, slightly longer. So we ran into May, June and July, which meant that we had 80% share of voice in the market in those summer months. And ultimately, by the end of July, we reached back to our member count, which was pre-COVID levels. It was the fastest in the market, as far as I'm aware. James isn't here to correct me on that one. But way ahead of our targets. We were aiming to do it by the end of the year. So with that confidence to invest for the future, it also gives us confidence to be bolder in our creative execution. And this is really the exciting stuff as marketeers, is to kind of invest in creative production and actually think about how it's going to change the perceptions of the brand. And this is one of their most recent campaigns called Elevate Your Everyday. Up till now, we've been mainly doing sort of shoots within the clubs. I say we, the creative agency, TBWA Manchester, shout out to them. Creative shoots around the club of people sort of enjoying David Lloyd gyms. This time we sort of took it a step further. We use cranes in they use cranes in the gym to make it look like people were sort of elevated in there every day. And I think it really plays to the sort of premium style of the gym and sort of helps the brand feel that extra more premium around the club as well and drive brand understanding. So over time, we've continued to create sort of significant short-term growth for the brand. And not only that, we've been able to change perceptions too. So having both the short, medium, and long-term measurement in place helps us do those three things together. So finally, three things that I'm going to leave you with about implementing holistic measurement. The first one, I think, is get everyone involved. I talked about the weekly meetings, but the more people that have access to the data, the better. I think when you see advertisers that have sort of disseminated their data across the organization, giving people access and transparency, it gives people confidence across the business that measurement is in place. The second one is find your North Star KPIs. In our case, it was about brand understanding. So as we sort of shifted, as we had always inquiries and sales on our radar, we started to think about how do we shift that brand understanding in the future as well. And then finally, have fun and celebrate together. We work in a creative industry, and of course, it's always more fun when sales are coming in. But the more creative we be, the more effective things will be too.
Excellent.